After 2 weeks on the road, the Eagles are back home in South Philadelphia, eager to keep the momentum going after a great win in Detroit. Head coach Nick Sirianni saying sometimes it just takes one good round. Now we just have to recreate it. The task today against the Chargers, the LA Chargers. Thanks for joining us here on the Kickoff Show presented by Axalta. Amy Campbell, as always, joined by Fran Duffy. And guys, today is a special day because this is the Eagles' NFL Salute to Service game. This is an NFL initiative now in its 11th season. The NFL has donated more than $51 million to Salute to Service partners. So you'll see us wearing the colors in here today. You'll see coaches and players on the sidelines in the camo hoodies, and we've got some pins, we've got some green. It's a really great cause.
No question, it's an absolutely great cause, and a shout out obviously to all of the servicemen and women that are watching the show, listening to the show from around the world. Thanks so much for your service.
Of course, as always, and we're really excited for this game today. Coming into South Philadelphia, the fans were out early getting ready for this one. There's a lot of energy in the air here. And of course, it all starts with Jalen Hurts up front, the young quarterback with another chance to get another good win under his belt, coming off a really solid performance, a balanced offensive attack that this team saw, a fast start, got it done in the passing game and the running game. He's going to have yet another challenge today against another defense loaded with talent.
Yeah, we got some blue chip talent here coming to Lincoln Financial Field when you have Joey Bosa and Derwin James on the opposing sideline. But in this game, I think it's going to come down to Jalen Hurts just going out and executing the throws that are available to him, because the Chargers, they're going to give you some space to be able to operate, especially underneath and in the intermediate area. If the Eagles can find ways to make some really well-defined throws for Jalen Hurts, that will go a long way towards some success over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, we've talked about the run game, but the play-action pass game has been really an effective tool for Jalen Hurts.
Jordan Howard up from the practice squad again today, and he had a huge impact on this game last week. 2 touchdowns for him, along with 2 touchdowns for Boston Scott. The Eagles on the ground a combined 236 yards. Jalen Hurts, a big part of that as well. The run game really got going last week against Detroit. I think it was something that Eagles fans had been hoping to see. Coaches had made an effort or had said they want to focus on it a little bit more. A ton of success last week against Detroit. And this Chargers defense, the worst defense in the league at stopping the run, so more opportunity here for the Eagles against this Chargers defense.
No doubt. And when you look at this Chargers defense, Amy, they are 32nd last in the NFL in yards allowed per carry before contact. So what does that mean? Well, that means that running backs are able to gain a lot of ground before they're touched by an opposing defender. That usually means that if you're high in that area, well, you're not going to give up a lot of yards after contact. No, they are 29th in yards after contact. So they're giving up the run plays in a lot of different ways, missed tackles, not getting off blocks, playing with light boxes. The opportunity will be there for the Eagles. Now, the Chargers did get back Justin Jackson in the middle of that defense, one of their better run-stuffing defensive tackles. They got him back last week. That did help them at the point of attack against the New England Patriots. That said, the Eagles can still move the football on the ground in this game if the running backs, Kenny Gainwell, Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, if they can be decisive like they were a week ago, that will go a long, long way towards more success here on the ground.
Yeah, this is the NFL's worst rushing defense, like we have mentioned. They're allowing 159 yards per game. So a lot of opportunity there for the Eagles. And look, you talked about how they did get their best run stopper back last week, but still struggled against the Patriots. They really have not been able to get that pressure up front and inside since they've lost Melvin Ingram. Jerry Tillery has not been able to create the pressure inside as much as Melvin Ingram had been able to be that bookend with Joey Bosa. They are 28th in the NFL in quarterback pressure, so some opportunity here for an Eagles offensive line and an Eagles offense to give some time to the quarterback to let things develop a little bit.
No doubt. And when Melvin Ingram was there and he was operating at such a high clip alongside Joey Bosa, the Chargers did a lot. It was under a previous coaching staff, but they did a lot to work those two together. Lots of stunts with them on the same side. You don't necessarily see that this year. Obviously, no Melvin Ingram, but the Chargers still a very creative pass rush front. So when you look at Jason Kelce and the Eagles offense, they have got to make sure that they are buttoned up when it comes to their rules and protection, understanding who's got who, because the Chargers, even though they'll just come with that 4-man rush, on third down especially, they will turn up the heat and they will do some different things from a pressure standpoint. So the Eagles have to be ready for blitzes from the slot, from safety Derwin James, and from the linebacker level, because those guys are all very, very involved.
Yeah, Derwin James is one of my favorite players in the NFL, and I'm sure we're going to take a minute to break his game down a little bit later. There's nobody like him in the league. Let's talk about Dallas Goddard a little bit, though, as we look at the offensive starters and just this Dallas Goddard's role in the tight end room. Look, he is now the guy. He's been the guy, top of the depth chart for a few weeks. He's performed really well as a key piece of this offense. He leads NFL tight ends in first down percentage, 79%. He's second among NFL tight ends in yards per reception with 14.9. And I think that says a lot about not only how dependable he is, but this offense, when you have a young quarterback, to give him a reliable piece, especially a reliable tight end like Dallas Goddard, it really is such a security for a young quarterback and an offense to be able to just have someone so dependable to move the chains the way Dallas Goddard has been for this offense.
Yeah, he's been the go-to target for Jalen Hurts since the trade of Zach Ertz. And I think when you look at Goddard, his combo skill set, his ability to affect the game as both a pass catcher and as a run blocker shows up over and over and over again. They love him on those intermediate routes, those sail routes along the sideline. They've done them a lot here over these last couple of weeks, especially off play action. I mentioned earlier how effective play action has been for Jalen Hurts, especially with him under center. Keep an eye on that here in this game. But the other player to keep an eye on here too as well, Amy, the backup tight end, Tyree Jackson, activated.
Are you so excited about that?
I'm excited to see him because he had an outstanding summer. He flashed every day in practice. When he was given opportunity in preseason games, he did a solid job as well. He made some catches in that Pittsburgh game in the first preseason game of the summer. So I'm excited to see what number 80 Tyree Jackson looks like. At this time a year ago, was just starting to think about making that conversion over to tight end from quarterback. He is really athletic. He's long. He made some outstanding catches almost every week during the summer. I can't wait to see what he looks like and see how much of a factor he can be in this Eagles offense.
He is a player that a lot of people have been really excited to see, eager for him to get back healthy. How are the Eagles going to use him? What can he bring? Because you're right, he has that freaky athleticism, but we haven't seen him on this level doing what he's going to be asked to do today. So not to be desired. The desire is there to see
no
this.
Doubt.
The expression means something completely different. Let's talk about this Eagles offensive line. They have Jack Driscoll back in the starting lineup. He left last game with a thumb injury, but he's back. He's doing fine. Look, I'm really excited about this matchup with this Eagles offensive line because, again, they're healthy. They have their key pieces back, and they're going to be matching up against this Chargers front that we talked about with guys like Joey Bosa, with guys like Jerry Tillery, but also Derwin James, who is going to come from possibly anywhere.
Yes.
He's the Swiss Army knife in the NFL, and one of the reasons he is, like, I know he's on the other team, so I'm not going to get too excited, but just from a football fan standpoint, he's going to be coming from everywhere. So the Eagles are really going to have to plan for Derwin James to be coming from anywhere, playing any position, and to be disciplined in the offense because he is really going to confuse the opposing quarterback with where they put him. And he's so smart and he's so talented that he can really make things look like that. So when you look at this matchup for this Eagles offensive line against the Chargers defense, I think it's going to be strength on strength, and I'm really excited to see what it looks like.
Yeah, and it's tough to find one-on-one matchups because the Chargers do move pieces around. So I think when you look at Lane Johnson, yeah, he's going to see some of Joey Bosa, but he's going to see plenty of some of these other Chargers defenders as well. So when you look at Jack Driscoll, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, everybody across the line, they're all going to have to be ready for every single one of these Chargers defensive players. And I mentioned the linebackers, you mentioned Derwin James, all of these guys at the second and third level, they will be impact pass rushers as well. Kaiser White, the linebacker, he has been very active. Drew Tranquill, when he's been active, he's been a big participant in their pressure package. So keep an eye out for these Chargers linebackers. They will be in the mix trying to get after Jalen Hurts in this game when the Chargers decide to blitz.
And how do the Eagles build on their success from last week? What did they do? What can they take with them? I know Nick Sirianni mentioned earlier in the week that he gave this metaphor, you just need the one good round, right? And he said that good round wasn't by accident. We want to figure out how to recreate what we did well. How can this offense say, all right, what are some of those pieces that we want to take forward into this matchup?
Well, we'll see. And I think that's one of the things I will be interested to watch in the first quarter and a half in this game is what do they carry over from Detroit? What do they bring home with them from that road trip to the Motor City? Because we saw that run game come alive. We saw those guys at the point of attack just crushing people as the Eagles were able to get a lot of vertical displacement. Those double teams from the offensive line getting up to the linebacker level. Will that carry over to this game against a defense that has struggled to stop the run from the jump here in 2021? I'm very interested to see if that is the case here in this game. That said, once again, Amy, I mean, it's one of those things, we were talking about this off camera, it's one of the most remarkable things that I've seen. The Eagles are like 4, 5, 6 weeks in a row now. Most of the games in this season where the opposing defense is down 2 of their 3 top corners. No Asante Samuel Jr. in this game. No Michael Davis in this game. So now the Eagles have some potential matchups on the perimeter that they can take advantage of. One of their other corners, Tavon Campbell, who they installed into the starting lineup, he got banged up. He was a late add to the injury report, and he's playing in this game, but he's coming in a little bit hampered. So the Eagles will have some opportunities to win some of these one-on-ones. We'll see if they're able to take advantage of that, but still, I think it's going to come down to what they're able to do in the run game as well in this matchup.
Well, when you look at the matchups on the outside for the Eagles, like you said, the Chargers without their starting corners. Of course, we know Derwin James is going to play in the backfield. He's going to play all over this entire field. But when you look at the opportunities for some of the Eagles' young receivers, what do you see today?
Yeah, I think really when you look at how it's all about executing when your number is called. Last week, the Eagles ran the ball a lot, so there are only so many passes that can go around. So you have to be able to execute when the ball comes your way. That might mean in the run game, like what we saw with Jalen Reagor last week, that one drive where he had 3 touches, none of them a traditional reception, right? We saw a jet sweep, we saw an orbit motion, then a little push pass down on the goal line. He did a great job, 3 touches, 24 yards. I think the Eagles have to be able to maximize some of those touches. If you're Tyree Jackson, if you're Devontae Smith, if you're Kenny Gainwell, any of these young players, it's all about, hey, if I only have 4 touches, if I only have 2 touches, I've got to make the most of those opportunities against this defense, especially. You have got to make them when they come your way. I'm
gonna lose my mind if we see a big play from Tyree Jackson today. I think everyone will get really excited about that. I'm so excited to see what this guy can do. I'm really glad he's going to be playing today. Let's shift a little bit to the Eagles defense, and of course this guy right here continues to get better every single game. Another 2-sack game for him last week in a game where the Eagles sacked the opposing QB 6 times. Josh Sweat responsible for 2 of those. His second career multi-sack game, and he's now had 3 in the last 4. He continues to develop as a key player in this Eagles defense. Of course, he was rewarded with that contract earlier this season, and just a young guy that continues to improve and be someone that shows the Eagles that they can rely on him.
And it was something I was really glad to see him come up with those 2 sacks earlier in the game last week, because Amy, I had actually highlighted him coming into the game. I thought he had an outstanding performance against the Las Vegas Raiders the week before. No sacks. It was a goose egg in the box score. But when you looked at his ability to get home, he had a number of really impressive pass rushes where the ball just came out really fast from Derek Carr. And that's one of the tough parts about being a defensive lineman. Sacks don't always tell the story. And it was just good to see that play carry over from one week to the next with Josh Sweat. We'll see if he can continue to build on that, because that matchup, he versus Storm Norton, the backup right tackle for the Chargers, huge one here in this game.
Yeah, a lot of opportunity for this Eagles defensive front as we take a look at the starters here. I feel like they're probably pretty excited about their matchup today. You talk a little bit about the Chargers offensive line and the matchup that this Eagles defensive front, guys like Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, Derek Burnett, some of the linebackers even are going to be having. Josh Sweat, of course, we have already sung his praises today and will continue to do that. But looking at the Chargers offensive line, they have had some turnover in the past from last season to this season. They've also had some injuries, especially on the right side. And look, Justin Herbert is a fantastic quarterback. Last year, he was fantastic when he was under pressure. This year, not so much when he was when under pressure, and he's been under pressure a decent amount. I think the Eagles defense has to be feeling good about their matchup there in the trenches.
To your point, last season under pressure, Justin Herbert had the #1 quarterback rating in the NFL, which was crazy for a rookie. Then a year later, fast forward to this season in 2021, when he's under pressure, that quarterback rating all the way down to 17th. That's still middle of the pack. He still makes some big-time throws under pressure, but that drop, that's been significant for this Chargers team, because a year ago, their only starter that they brought back was Brian Bulaga, the right tackle who missed most of last season due to injury. Come back here this summer, what happens? Very early in the season, he ends up getting injured once again and has been out. So Storm Norton has been in there at right tackle. He's been a little bit of a turnstile in pass protection, has not been overly effective as a run blocker. Same thing at right guard. They brought in Ode Abushi and free agency. He was a solid starter for them for the first month of the season, then got hurt in a little bit of a freak injury for a torn ACL. He's out. Michael Schofield has been in there at right guard. He's been a little bit of a journeyman, and his play has been very up and down. There's word that it could be Brandon Hymus, the rookie 5th-round pick from Nebraska, who's getting the start here today. Either way, the Chargers have not been able to get good play on the right side of the offensive line. The depth has been tested, and it has utterly not passed that test. so far here, and it's been a big reason why the Chargers have not had a ton of offensive success over these last couple of games.
Well, and getting pressure on the quarterback, of course, is very, very important, but another weapon on this offense that is going to be getting a lot of attention is Austin Eckler for the Chargers. He is that versatile offensive weapon, that dynamic hybrid guy that the NFL offenses are loving right now. 420 yards rushing, 302 yards receiving, 8 total touchdowns. This guy gets it done in so many ways. This is going to be a full defensive effort up front and at every level of this defense to stop a player with that type of ability in this offense.
Yeah, and the Eagles had to face a similar kind of player a week ago in DeAndre Swift. We talked about how he led the NFL in yards after catch leading into that game against the Eagles. But DeAndre Swift, he's trying to run around you. He's a shake and bake player in the hole. He's going to try and wiggle his way through contact. Austin Eckler, he could do that, but he will also run right through you as well. They call him pound for pound out there with the LA Chargers, and that's because he is so strong, he's so powerful, but he's still shifty. So the Eagles have to carry over that same mentality here to this game. You had to be able to corral DeAndre Swift when he was on an island, when he was in the flat, when he was at the intermediate area. The Eagles have to do the same thing here with Austin Eckler. Remember, the Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell, that coaching staff, they came from the Saints. Joe Lombardi, the offensive coordinator this week for the Chargers, he comes from the Saints. They do a lot of the same things with these running backs. So the Eagles have to be ready to keep these running backs under wraps.
Well, and it's not, of course, it's not just Austin Eckler. There's going to be challenges for this Eagles defense at every level. And one matchup I'm really, really excited to see is what the Eagles decide to do with Darius Slay today. I'm really excited to see where he ends up in this backfield. And of course, the Chargers' weapons, there are many, but the two names that people really talk about are Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, two of the best receivers in the league. And Darius Slay even saying earlier this week that, look, we know this is going to be one of the best receiving corps that we face all season. We know Justin Herbert, he's a gunslinger, and he's really excited to be facing guys like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So I'm really interested to see where Darius Slay ends up in this matchup, because normally he's one-on-one with the team's best receiver, but it's kind of pick your poison in this matchup today.
No question. By the way, love Fletcher Cox.
Love it.
Fired up watching him getting his teammates ready for this game. I think when you look at Darius Slay, I agree, it will be interesting. I do wonder, though, because what we've seen from the Eagles in the past is when they go up against a pass game that has a very defined number one target. Go back to Carolina a few weeks ago in that game. Yeah, he was by far their number one weapon. That's who they funneled the passing game through. With the Chargers, yeah, Keenan Allen technically is the number one receiver in terms of targets, but Mike Williams is right there behind him. Both guys line up inside, both guys line up outside. Very different skill sets as well. Keenan Allen, more of that precise technician. He's one of the best at it in the NFL. His releases, his route running, he's outstanding in that area of the game. Mike Williams, a little bit less nuance, but he will go up and over you, play above the rim, and throw a dunk over you. He's been doing it all season long. As the pass game has not been as effective over the last couple of weeks, his numbers have kind of waned off. But either way, Darius Slay and the rest of this Eagles secondary, they're going to see a little bit of all these guys, and so they've got to be ready. Jalen Guyton, he's the speed guy. Josh Palmer, he's a rookie third-round pick. Very well-rounded player as well. So a lot of options for the Chargers and Justin Herbert in this game.
Well, and also tight end Jared Cook, who has been in the NFL forever. And for some reason, he always seems to have a good game against the Eagles. I have noticed that, he's kind of like, a little bit of a sleeper throughout the NFL season, and he somehow always really shows up against the Eagles. So another weapon for the defense to stop. What about the matchup for the secondary as a whole? We isolated Slay, but what about the rest of the DBs? Of course, Rodney McLeod, we're seeing him now, but the rest of the cornerbacks, the safeties, the entire back end of the defense.
Yeah, Anthony Harris slides back into the starting lineup.
Yeah, good to have him back. Yes.
Yeah, he's missed the last 2 games, so we'll see number 28 back out there. But I think when you look overall at the Eagles secondary, it's going to be all about trying to stop the quick game passing, and that's what this offense is all about. We all think of Justin Herbert, and he's one of the most gifted passers in football. Can make any throw. Every blade of grass must be defended when you're going up against Justin Herbert. That said, they rely on the quick game, ball out fast, and especially with the issues they're having along the offensive line, it makes sense. They want the ball to come out of Herbert's hands fast, and so the Eagles have to be ready to make sure that they get on some of those quick throws, tackle the catch, don't let yards after catch be gained here in this matchup. I think that will be big to watch, but still, this is an offense that at any point they can shoot it down the field. And again, Jalen Guyton, he's the big play threat, but they're not afraid to, especially when Mike Williams lines up inside, they'll use him like a vertical tight end and just get him down the seam running up against the safeties. Something to watch here in this matchup.
Yeah, this Chargers offense is really good on the deep ball. Justin Herbert has a big arm. I feel like when they're really thriving the way they want to be playing, this offense is going through his arm. He's 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 63% completion percentage, of course, building on that offensive Rookie of the Year season, but has struggled the past 2 games, and we'll kind of break that down a little bit more, what some teams were able to find success against him. But let's talk about the matchup here for the Eagles linebackers, specifically Davion Taylor, who I wanted to highlight because we've talked about the back end and we've talked about the front. I want to talk about Davion Taylor as we're watching Rodney McLeod break down the defense. He is going to continue to have more opportunity. He's gotten over the injuries. He's continued to get more and more comfortable in this defense. A guy with a lot of talent who didn't have a ton of experience coming into the NFL, but is somebody that the coaching staff has, kind of taken on with all of that potential, and he continues to show that, that he's been worth that investment.
No doubt. It's always about trying to understand where does a player need to improve. Davion Taylor had limited experience coming in to the NFL, and so where does he need to get better? Where did he need more reps? It was about playing in traffic, playing in the box, playing downhill, trying to defeat blocks. And over these last couple of weeks, we've been able to see him as he's gotten healthier and is starting to get more reps. We've seen more examples of him playing downhill. Last week against the Lions, I thought he did a really good job a number of times of coming down, defeating blocks alongside TJ Edwards and getting to the football. So that's been really fun to watch. I'm excited to see if he can continue it here in this game against the Chargers, because that's the number one area coming into this season, Amy, that I most wanted to see him make that big jump.
Yeah, I think you're not the only one there. I think we're really excited to see how he looks today. And as always, we thank PA Lottery for bringing us those amazing warm-ups. All right, with that, we send it back over to Lincoln Financial Field, and we bring in our Eagles insider, Dave Spadaro, who is going to be joining us live from the sidelines in just a moment. And we'll see if we can catch up with him in a second. But I guess we can continue to talk a little bit. Oh, there you are. Oh, good. Dave, hello.
Hello.
Looking great in that hoodie, Dave.
Thank
Loving
you.
the camo.
Yeah. Well, it's that kind of a special day here where we pause about football and remember what's really important, and that's our nation's military. So it's humbling and it's really inspiring. So it's very cool seeing all of this around the stadium today.
Again, of course, we'll be seeing coaches and people on the sidelines rocking the camo as well. It's just awesome. I appreciate us pausing to take that moment and give credit where credit is due, and gratitude where gratitude is due. So let's go big picture on the state of the team. We're seeing the younger players get more and more playing time. Is this the long-term roster transition that we're starting to see here?
Yeah, I think it's been in progress. Obviously these last several weeks, and then it really is illustrated by the move to release Eric Wilson at linebacker, and as you mentioned, give Davion Taylor more playing time, and TJ Edwards, who stepped up last week, give him more playing time. Sean Bradley, some of these young linebackers. Tyree Jackson is active today. We'll see if there's a package in there for him. Another young tight end, right? And he and Jack Stoll, 2 first-year players in the NFL. So I think it's cool to watch the roster turn over, as Howie Roseman has said this team would have in wheels in motion since the year began.
A lot of young players, and it's certainly something I'll be watching here early and often in this game. Dave, is there a storyline that you'll be hyper-focused on here in this one?
Yeah, Fran, we saw last week in Detroit an offensive game plan that really leaned on the power running game and leaned on the offensive line. And in my mind, I'm going, okay, I know it was Detroit, but is that the template for this offense moving forward? Is that what you want to do with Jalen Hurts? Now, look, today, as you guys have discussed, the Chargers have 2 starters out of their secondary, right? And they're last in the league against the run. So which do you pick if you're Nick Sirianni? I just wanted to see if last week, how much of what the Eagles did offensively last week carries into today's game against the Chargers defense that has struggled and that now is also injured.
Well, yeah, and Dave, I know in your conversation with Nick Sirianni earlier this week, he talked about how he wants to identify what worked and carry those things forward into this week. So certainly something to see how they apply that in this game. What's it going to take for the Eagles to get it done this afternoon?
I really look at the defense, Amy, and I understand that Mike Williams is a great, big, tough receiver and that Keenan Allen runs great routes. But I want to see what they do against their really good running back, Austin Eckler, who's so similar in a lot of ways to DeAndre Swift last week, more powerful, but he touched the ball as a receiver and as a running back. And I feel like what defined the Eagles defensively last week was that they got to the ball in numbers. And I think they're going to have to do that today against Eckler. So my key is what they do against Austin Eckler and how they can limit him and take that option away from Justin Herbert.
We will see if the Eagles can clamp down on all of that talent on the Chargers offense. Dave, thanks so much. Enjoy the game.
All right, go Birds.
Go Birds. I love it. You can really, there's a lot of energy over there. I felt it coming into town today, and you can already feel it just coming off the screen. All right, what is it going to take for you, Fran, today for the Eagles to get the win?
I'm going to reflect back on something that Nick Sirianni talked about early this week, and that was their ability last week against the Lions to win the battle in the trenches. Win that battle in the lines of scrimmage. If you look at the way the Eagles build this team, and this is going back decades now, they love to build along the lines of scrimmage. And what does that mean in this matchup? Offensively, you're going to dominate in the trenches. We talked with Dave about that just now, but then also keeping Jalen Hurts clean. If you're able to do that, obviously, key to success here offensively. Then you go to the other side of the football. On defense, if you're able to win the line of scrimmage, you're going to harass Justin Herbert, and that has been a recipe for success for the Baltimore Ravens and the New England Patriots, the two teams that just put a whooping on the Chargers these last two games. So I think if you're looking at the way that the Eagles can win this game, and again, they're coming in, a lot of people think the Chargers have a good shot to come in and get a W on the road. If you're the Eagles, you say, hey, our way to win the lines of scrimmage. It might seem cliche, it might seem obvious, but to me, that is going to be key here in this matchup.
These things are cliche for a reason, Fran. It's because they are important in football games. Look, and on that note, when you talk about the recipe for success, we're at that point in the season where we're starting to see what causes teams to struggle, and I think we can take a little bit of that recipe from the Chargers' losses to Baltimore and to New England. And one of the things that both of those defenses did really well was to throw off the timing in the passing game for the Chargers, and it really seemed to throw Justin Herbert off. He talked after both of those games about how on defense, what he saw from them was stuff that he had not seen before. And so if he can just see a new look, something he's not familiar with, that might be good enough to confuse him a little bit. And what those teams did, they dared the Chargers to run. The Chargers were not able to successfully execute that. And on the back end, in the passing game, these defenses were able to just be physical enough to throw off the timing for those Chargers receivers, those Chargers pass catchers. And it seemed to work. It seemed to be the recipe against Justin Herbert. So, of course, we know this offense runs through his arm, flows through his arm, and if that can be a recipe for success, we can, I think disrupting the timing in the passing game just a little bit could make a big difference. And, of course, one of the players who will be tasked with making an impact on the Eagles defense tonight is young linebacker TJ Edwards, who is now in his third year in the NFL. He is coming off a team-high 13 tackles in last week's win over the Lions, and he joins Mike Quick in this week's one-on-one presented by Ponla Hockey.
Happy to be joined by Eagles linebacker TJ Edwards. TJ, thanks for joining us and congratulations on last week's win.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So you came out of Wisconsin undrafted. You had to prove yourself. New staff comes here. You got to prove yourself all over again. What's the takeaway? What have you learned in processes like this?
I mean, just the way that, I'm built is just, I want to prove it every single day. That's kind of how it's been my college career. And, obviously in the NFL, it's what have you done lately? So you know that every day you got to be at your best. And that's what I try to do every single day.
So in this role that you have now, what's your comfort level?
I feel really comfortable. Obviously every week our coaches kind of go over our roles and why we're doing certain things. So just kind of having that why on, what the purpose is of this call and this call. So that helps a lot. But I think everyone feels really comfortable right now.
I think you must be, because last week you led the team in tackles with 13 tackles. What is it that clicked for you in that particular game?
I think, obviously film study is big into that, and, being more prepared helps you, play fast and kind of trust your first read. But I think just everyone was out there and trusting their first instinct, their first read, seeing what they see and just going to get the ball. And I think, you saw, aggression, and you saw guys that were obviously a little frustrated, and we know we had to go out there and put some good tape on film.
So is it any harder when you have, say, Singleton out there or Davion Taylor, and how it's mixed up now that you're going to have different guys beside you?
No, I mean, during camp, our coaches did a good job of honestly playing us next to everybody. So, one day you're playing next to Alex, and the next day you're playing next to Sean and Davion and Jannard and Pat and Jacoby. So it's one of those things where I think we're all really comfortable with each other at this point and kind of have a good idea of how each other's going to play. Obviously, I've been out there with Alex for a longer amount of time, so I have a good idea. But with Davion, he's done so well just in studying the game and being in the right spots. So I think, everyone has a lot of trust in everyone in our room, to be honest with you.
So tell me a little bit about this week. Last week you had DeAndre Swift. This week you have a guy that's similar in Austin Eckler. They like to give it to him out of the backfield. They throw it to him on the little passes, dump-offs. Tell me about the challenge this week.
Every week is a challenge in the NFL, but going into this week, their skill positions are so talented with that receiver group. And Austin Eckler, he's a guy who can make you miss with his shiftiness, but also run through you with how strong he is. So we just have to do a good job of playing our rules and making sure that we're getting hats to the ball, because it's going to take more than one to bring that guy down for sure.
The Philadelphia Eagles and Axalta Coding Systems have built a roster of all-pro teachers. Go to philadelphiaeagles.com/Axalta All-Pro Teachers to view this year's outstanding recipients. Eagles fans score official NFL gear every week just by drinking Pepsi. Purchase Eagles Pepsi bottles or packs, scan the code to start building points, and redeem them for Eagles gear or a shot at the grand prize every single week. Visit madeforeagleswatching.com for rules and to enter. Of course, we just got to hear a little bit more from Eagles linebacker TJ Edwards as he continues to carve out a role for himself in this Eagles defense. And Fran, he's one of the players whose stories I love. He was undrafted. He's continually had to prove himself, and he has risen to that occasion. And I feel like those guys that have to prove themselves, it just gives them a little bit of an edge, especially on the defense. I think he's really done well with what the coaches have trusted him with, and he's, carved out a great role for himself on this Eagles defense.
Yeah, this is a guy that I've been watching for a long time, going back to his days as a 4-year starter at Wisconsin, where he was extremely productive, and really his skill set coming into the NFL, athleticism, that was a little bit of a question. The top end speed, he ran like 4.8 in the 40-yard dash. To me, I don't care. This guy, all he does is finish downhill. He defeats blocks. He's a good tackler. He's really smart. He's really instinctive. That shows up in the pass game as well. I've always been a fan of TJ Edwards, and so it's been great to be able to see him come in and with his expanded role have success. I actually had Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon this week on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, which you can find wherever podcasts can be found, by the way. Yeah, exactly right. Shameless plug. TJ Edwards, I think what Jonathan Gannon talked about, some of the things he brings from an intangible standpoint, all the things he does behind the scenes. So just getting that insight paired with what we see on the field was great to see and great to hear about TJ Edwards.
Yeah, and I also don't care if my linebackers don't run the best 40 ever. It's not like the biggest thing in the world, and obviously you're seeing that TJ Edwards is doing great things in this defense, regardless of that 4.40 time at the Combine back when. Let's talk about his specific matchup today. We've talked a lot about Austin Eckler, but what is TJ Edwards going to be specifically tasked with today?
It's the same kind of deal where you have to come downhill, defeat blocks, and get to the football. As long as the Eagles continue to play this way with lighter boxes, the safeties back a little bit, playing to make sure that they cover the deep pass and not get beat with these explosive plays. That means that everybody up front, not just the linebackers, but everybody up front has got to be able to defeat blocks. You cannot get blocked one-on-one, because that's what the offense wants. That's where the offense wins in those scenarios, is if you've got one blocker blocking one defender. That's what you don't want. And so whether it's TJ Edwards, Davion Taylor, the entire defensive line, that entire group, you have got to be able to get off blocks and get population to the football.
Well, and the Eagles defense and TJ Edwards is a little bit of a nod to your Rico extra point that focuses on both defenses.
Yeah, it's something that I'm really interested to see here with both defensive schemes here in this one. And obviously you have Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon and the head coach for the Chargers, Brandon Staley. This goes all the way back to a childhood friendship. And again, when you look at these two defensive schemes, they're built very, very similarly. Watching them on film, they both rely on the two-high safety shell. And what does that mean? What does that look like? That means before the snap, you're going to have two safeties playing deep off the ball. And what that does is that's going to help take away the pass. It could be a couple different coverages. It could be quarters or cover 4, where you have 4 deep defenders, 3 underneath. Could be cover 2, where you have 2 deep safeties splitting the field in half with 5 defenders underneath. Either way, zone coverage. But that also gives you the ability to disguise these looks where you can rotate to a single high safety look. So one safety comes down, another rotates to the post. That could be still zone coverage, cover 3 with 3 deep and 4 under. Or you could be rotating to play a version of man coverage called cover one, where you have that one safety and you're playing man-to-man underneath. These are all the basic coverages in football. Every team plays some of these forms of coverage. What it ultimately comes down to, though, is that you can much easier disguise what you're doing for the quarterback. If you line up in that too high safety shell, you take away the deep pass, but then also you keep the quarterback guessing. Are you going to stay in one of those too high looks and play cover two or cover four? Or are you going to rotate those safeties, play single high, and play cover one or cover three? You're always keeping the quarterback guessing. That's a big part of when these defenses have had success this year. That's where they've really had, you've seen a lot of that disguise on the back end. And conversely, Amy, when you've seen these quarterbacks struggle, Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert, the opposing defense was able to do that to them. So that's why, to me, looking at the defensive disguises, that's a big thing I'll be watching here in this matchup.
And we will see which one of these young childhood friends can confuse the opposing quarterback the most tonight. That's just absolutely adorable, and I'm sure really exciting for them. Eagles fans, of course, there is a new way that you can get a recap of each game. So check out our voice app on Alexa and Google devices. For more info, you can go to PhiladelphiaEagles.com/voice. And of course, you can get a full game recap right here on the post-game show presented by Rico immediately following the game action. You'll have instant analysis, instant reaction, and hear from coaches and players live in their press conferences immediately following the game. And so for now, we look to see, can the Eagles get it done against the LA Chargers and all that firepower coming into South Philadelphia this afternoon. It's a beautiful day. It should be a great game. Enjoy this one, everybody, and fly, Eagles, fly.